on TV and radio, then you must know what you're doing, right? That's the... Okay, so just so I can get to know the room a little bit, who here is a former public defender? We'll show of hands, just so I get a... Okay. And then, show of hands, how many people have actually done a DUI trial? Okay. So most people here are pretty seasoned, so that's good because when I give this talk, I'll make it all the more comprehensive. So we'll do that. All right, cool. So yeah, a little more about my intro. So love the public defender's office. I'm a PD for life. I always say I have the heart of a PD. I was stationed in the Beverly Hills courthouse some years ago when it was still open, and the reason why I got into DUIs more than I think most PDs at the time was because most of the cases at the Beverly Hills court were DUIs. All the clubs, Robertson, West Hollywood, we got all those cases. So the training I got from Metro, it was pretty good training. It was Les McMillan was there and Philip Dubé, great trainers. But the DUIs is a big, it's a vast world. And I said, if I'm gonna be this Beverly Hills public defender, and do all these DUIs, I really want to I want to be an expert in it. I want to be like the real guns. So I started buying up all the DUI books by like Don Bartel and Lawrence Taylor, and I went to the California Attorney's Criminal Justice Rules of the Road DUI seminar, which is coming up, by the way. It's going to be in Palm Springs. It's like in a month. I think it's like the weekend of September 9th. I highly recommend going to it. You hear from really good DUI lawyers, and they offer a reduced rate to PDs. And it's nice. It's Palm Springs, nice hotel. You get away for a little bit, so you get 8 MCLE credits for it. So anyways, bought up on all the books. I joined the National College of DUI Defense. Who would ever think there'd be a National College of DUI Defense, right? But there is. And I joined all the listservs. And I started trying all these wacky defenses out in Beverly Hills, because when you're a PD, right, you get to have that fun. You get these cases where there's basically nothing to lose. Client's a .14, and he wants to go to trial. Okay, I'll figure something out, right? What was emerging just when I started doing DUIs was the GERDS defense, the gastroesophageal reflux disease defense. And I take credit for getting Dr. Gary Bellick. He's a GI at Cedars. I was one of his first, I guess, GERDS defense public defenders. I saw him testify once in a private case, but he wasn't on the panel to be appointed. So Judge Marcia Revelle, I just kind of said, hey, you just did a trial with him. I want to do the same defense as this expensive private lawyer as a PD. So shouldn't he get the same thing? She goes, yeah, sure. So she signed off on it, and he was appointed. And from then on, we got an acquittal there, and the GERDS defense really picked up. So ever since then, I still do DUIs. I find that in the private sector, DUIs are falling. No pun intended, of course, we'll get there. But they're falling because of Uber, I think. I haven't seen any studies on this, but I can tell you that I'm not getting those calls like I used to get, and neither are my colleagues. So it's not as lucrative, I guess, so to speak, as everyone thought it would be. But it's still out there. There's always going to be DUIs as long as there's holiday weekends. So we need to arm ourselves as best as we can to combat them. So with that, I'll speak for about 35, 40 minutes. I appreciate you taking your lunch out to be here, even though it's mandatory. You could have found some weird excuse not to be here. I'm sure Janet wouldn't let that go. So I hope I make it worth your while, and I hope you still have somewhat of a lunch left when I'm done. All right, so here we go. Classifying the case. So I like to say most DUIs can fall into one of these 4 categories. And that's kind of always how you want to start things out, right? Do I have a rising case where the first machine is lower than the second? Do I have a case where they're all above a .08, both the PAS and data master? In which case I'm thinking a mouth alcohol defense. That's kind of like what your gut's got to be. If there's got to be something in the mouth that's causing these machines to provide what's called exaggerated readings. So it's that kind of case, and we'll talk about some of these defenses. 3, is it a no driving? No need to explain that one. And 4, is it a case where sometimes you got like a below .08 case, but they still charge just the 8 count because there's like some really bad driving. Parenthetically, I'm seeing marijuana DUIs on the rise now for that reason, even in the checkpoint context. So they smell the odor of marijuana, even though there's no bad driving. They ask them, have you recently ingested anything? They used to say medicated, but now it's just like, have you ever had it? And the client will be honest, yeah, I just had a couple of hits. And right there alone, they will deal with that. So I have, at the end, I'll speak about marijuana DUIs a little bit, what we're doing there. Okay, so first of those four categories. Let's talk about the rising defense for a second. You need to be in the absorptive state in order to argue a rising, right? You need to basically, the challenge is you need to prove that the client had a drink close in time to driving. So it's a catch-22 because you're basically trying to tell the jury, reward my client for doing the wrong thing, right? How do you reward someone for drinking? Acquit them because they only drink really close to driving. So how do you do that whole reward thing? So here's what we're seeing is really beneficial in the rising defenses, right? One is the person needs to be close to home, right? They need to have been, because you're arguing that they would have made it home before the officer stopped them. They're kind of like at a race with their own blood alcohol level. They would have still been a 0.06, 0.07 when they're watching Gilmore Girls on their couch, right? That's basically what you're saying. So if the client is going to Orange County and they're stopped in LA County, not going to be great for the rising defense, right? The other factor you want in a good rising case is that the person did not intend on driving when they had the drinks. For example, this case works well, so clients get, your client's celebrating someone's birthday at a bar, right? They drive, they get there, they park, but they plan on staying there till midnight or 1 a.m. to let the 2 or 3 drinks kind of taper off, right? But they get a call in the middle of the party that their mom's in the hospital. So now they just had their drinks close in time to driving. They take off because they did not intend on leaving at that time, right? So the jury is going to be more sympathetic to a rising defense if you can prove that the person really didn't intend on driving so close in time to that drinking. But they did. There was an emergency. There was something that came up that caused them to do that, and then a jury will be, we're seeing is more receptive to that. I tried it with puppies. A sick puppy didn't go over well. So human beings, I guess, are the only ones that really fly. And then in closing argument, when you're running a rising defense, you got to use the now we know theme in there, because otherwise in other words, it's like this. You have to sell to the jury that we don't walk around with breath machines attached to us, right? We can only make the best judgments that we can. And here we have a situation where the person did not intend on driving. They would have made it home very quickly. And now she knows. Now she knows that if she has 2 or 3 drinks, that's going to put that person a little higher. We've all learned from this situation. So the next time you go to a bar, remember this story. Remember this. But fortunately, at the time of driving, the person was below the 0.08. In voir dire, you want to set up a rising defense. This one kind of works, where if you have like a situation, you ask the jury, like let's say, you told your young one that they would have a curfew to be home by a certain time, but they didn't make it home in time because they got a flat tire. Would you punish that person? You say, no, something happened outside of their, something just intervened, right? And that's kind of what you're arguing here. They would have made it home. They would have made it home before curfew, but the cop is like the flat tire, right? Would have made it home. So I'm telling you, there's something there, and everyone hates a flat tire. So when you say a cop's like a flat tire, So, and finally, most importantly, again, remember, you need to use that word absorptive state. Get used to using the word absorptive. It's going to come up in all the defenses. But get the jury to understand that, we drink, we rise, and then we decline about 0.02 every hour, but we rise very quickly. So get the jury comfortable with the fact that you don't know what somebody is, what their blood alcohol level is, when they're in the absorptive state, when we're absorbing the alcohol. Okay, so now the mouth alcohol defense category. This is where you got that both machines are all high, and you're like telling the client, I don't know how we're going to beat this thing. Well, here's how you're going to beat it, right? The manuals are very helpful. All the manuals are online for these machines. If you, for example, the preliminary alcohol screening device, and you can email me after, I'll give you the actual manual where I have it highlighted in tab. It actually says that mouth alcohol can cause exaggerated readings, right? So that's your safety valve, because then you're telling a jury, hey, this is not me, the defense attorney, making this up. This is in the manual. And you also want to confront the talks with that soon, as we'll see. but the manuals are often the best exhibits and pieces of evidence for these cases. The usage log codes always use, you always want to get obviously the accuracy logs, the maintenance logs, the usage logs, which are almost always available now online on the second machines, not on the PAS. The PAS, you still got a request from the prosecutor. But don't be married just to the ones that our clients have used. Look at the ones a few weeks before. As long as you can find, even a few months, as long as you can find some abnormalities where the machine is reading high, that alone gives you some bite with the jury when you're asking the toxicologist, hey, look, just a few weeks before, this person, this machine was reading high, right? It doesn't have to be just your clients, just the calibration that was done the week of your clients was high. It could be a few months before it was reading high. So definitely use those log codes to show that the machines can read inaccurately. In voir dire, you always want to ask about false positives. The example sometimes we'll use is like the poppy seed that can test positive, for alcohol. That's like the most common one, right? But you don't want to look desperate either. So you want to really show more like a realistic false positive. You want to say that, isn't it true that, sometimes you get on a scale, right? And you get on it one time and it'll give you this weight, but you get on another scale and it'll give you this weight. So two different machines can be reading something a little bit differently. Machines are not perfect, right? We all use smartphones, right? Do they ever shut off in the middle? Get the jury being comfortable with the fact that the machines are just machines. And machines they're susceptible to error and viruses and everything else that we're using on a daily basis. I wouldn't call it a computer so much. Computer has a natural, we kind of use computers more and we don't like to think that they do make mistakes. But machines do have errors. And confront that in the voir dire. If you have a juror who's going to say machines do not have errors, then they're gone. They're gone. Generally, you want good field sobriety tests to counter those bad results. And the way I do it is, you can actually, you can change up how the FSTs are scored, right? The officers are taught under the California Highway Patrol NHTSA guidelines that there's certain cues, depending on how many things they do wrong, that's considered a fail or impairment, that kind of stuff. But you make your own scorecard. You can find, 20 things that the client did right, didn't hit the curb, handed you the keys right, didn't slur when they were talking to you initially. You make up your own scorecard and say, okay, officer, I just read you 20 things, right? And out of those 18 things, did they do them right? Yes. Okay, well, that's pretty good field sobriety test performance, isn't it? You can call what you want field sobriety test. Let him say that's not an FST. Say, I'm not asking about NHTSA guidelines. I'm just saying they did 19 out of 20 things right. That's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. And is that consistent, officer, with someone blowing a .13? They'll say, I'm not here to say that, but pose the questions. You create the scorecard in this case. Because remember, the jury doesn't get a copy of the police report. We're looking at the police report, it sucks, right? But the jury doesn't see that, that's all hearsay. So you can create your own visual of what the police report looks like for the jury. And you can even actually be reading it from the police. I use the police report when I'm reading those things. You look at all the boxes that were not checked, right? Didn't do this, did you check that box off? No. Well, not bad, officer, isn't it? Strong odor of alcohol is actually a good thing because that means that there's maybe more mouth alcohol. There's still mouth alcohol. There's still some alcohol in the mouth. So if you got a report that says strong odor of alcohol, you actually should celebrate over that. And that's going to be your argument to the jury in closing. And GERDs and asthma we spoke about. So basically, any kind of acid reflux, or something where the person uses those Listerine strips a lot. Again, that's your mouth alcohol. And use the manual so you see mouth alcohol is not something that we're making up. And if you can make it into a mouth, and feel free to use this picture, that's fine. Illustrate the point as best as you can that burping, regurgitating under Title 17, there's a reason why Title 17 says make sure the person observe them for 15 minutes so you see that the subject did not regurgitate, burp, vomit, or any one of those things. Why? Because if they did, you got a mouth alcohol problem. So Title 17 manuals, there is a defense for that case so long as the person didn't collide with any other cars. Then we have just the 8-count case, right? That's the case where like a .07 or maybe some marijuana. Focus